This is the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show, a weekly recap of your Philadelphia Eagles. Broadcasting live from Hard Rock Cafe in Philadelphia, tonight's show is brought to you by Penn Community Bank, Hard Rock Cafe, Philadelphia, Independence Blue Cross, The Capitol Grill, Rob's Automotive and Collision, and BCWSA. We now go live to the Hard Rock Cafe in downtown Center City, Philadelphia for the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show. Now, here are your hosts, Paul Jolovitz and Paul Domowitch.
And welcome here to the beautiful Hard Rock Cafe at 12th and Market for the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show right here on 1490 WBCB and 107.3 FM. You can also stream us on Facebook Live by searching WBCB Sports. Monday Night Kickoff tonight, followed by the Bull session, a little doubleheader here, football and baseball, as the Eagles, Paul Domowitch, get ready for their home opener against those Minnesota Vikings. Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Jolly?
Doing very well. Our guest tonight is Sean Landeta. Sean will be here in a few minutes, and we'd love to have him and punted in the NFL for 2.5 centuries, right?
At least.
At least, and punted until his mid-40s, the Tom Brady of the punters world. He'll be here in a couple minutes. As the Eagles have anticipated this and thought about it for 8 months, got by the Lions last week, something that was kind of validated by the Lions beating of the Redskins yesterday, the Commanders. I knew I would do that. Probably do it 7 more times this year, but I'm from Washington, what the heck. Exactly. But people have waited a long time for this. Will Devontae Smith show up this week? Will they throw the ball to him? How will A.J. Brown contend with Justin Jefferson, though they won't play each other? Who would you take for yardage, by the way, A.J. Brown or Justin Jefferson? More yardage.
Yards in this game?
Yep.
Justin Jefferson.
All right.
Just because, look at his numbers. Even during his peak years in Tennessee, A.J. Brown wasn't putting up Justin Jefferson-type numbers.
Nope. And another receiver coming back here with the Vikings, an era long gone in Philadelphia. Damo used to pine for the Jalen Reagor days, but he'll be catching punts for the Vikings. Whether he, plays wide receiver or not, didn't play any snaps in week 1. But what would it be like to see Jalen Reagor fair catching balls in a purple uniform at the link rather than a green one?
Probably about the same.
Probably about the same. This game has lots of intrigue. To me, it's a great spot, Damo, for the Eagles.
Yeah.
I'm not a guy who is Eagle emotional every game. I think I look with a clear head at it and try to keep emotion out of it. So I'll explain why I say that. The Eagles tonight play their second regular season game, which to me is their second preseason game. Mm-hmm. If you consider the first month of the season, the new preseason in the NFL. They played one series offensively and defensively. Don't tell me that gets a team ready. They show up on the field. They get a little of the competitive juices flowing. But basically a preseason game in Detroit last week against a team that took preseason the other way, very physical, trying to change the culture under Dan Campbell. They got out with a win, didn't play their best, obviously, and now they come back. I think this will help them markedly. I think they'll improve a bunch, and Minnesota coming off a win against a divisional home team with another divisional home game staring them in the face. For a lot of reasons, I think this is a brilliant spot for the Eagles.
Yeah. I going into the season had them possibly being 8-2 after 10 games, and to do that, this is a game that I had in the win column if they're going to accomplish that. They're better than Minnesota talent-wise,
right. Yep.
but that's that doesn't mean anything. They got to go out there. They've got to get a better pass rush on Kirk Cousins than they did last week on Jared Goff.
Yep.
They've got to get a little bit more consistency in their passing game, get more people involved. This is a game they can and should win at home. What are they, a 2.5 point
2.5 point favorite. The line is 49.5 for the over-under. By the way, unusual. We've seen 2 Monday night games before. As you mentioned, we were chatting before the show. The beginning of the season, usually they have an East Coast and a West Coast game on ESPN. Tonight, Buffalo and Tennessee play at 7 o'clock for some reason that I'm not quite aware of. Buffalo a 10-point favorite over Mike Vrabel's boys as they try to avoid going 0-2 after the loss to the 2-0 Giants. And then the Eagles game at 8:30. Doth, why? What?
Well, all we could ascertain is that it likely has to do with money.
Likely.
Because everything the NFL does has to do with money.
Yep.
So my guess is, ABC, which owns ESPN or Disney, whoever the hell owns it, had said probably, we want as many games, we want quality games, and the NFL said, well, you pay us more money, we'll give you more games, and you can put them on ABC and ESPN, but they got to run kind of side by side.
Don Olmeyer, the former head of NBC Sports, once said something, Domo, that I'll remember the rest of my life. He said, if the question's about sports, the answer is money. And that's the best I can do with it also. So you take a look at this game. Kirk Cousins comes in. Remember the Vikings in the championship game a few years ago, different team. Kevin O'Connell, the coach, who spent some time here. His father went to St. James, 50th anniversary team celebrated the other day. Mike Zimmer, gone after 8 years. Kevin O'Connell comes in. How's he changed this Vikings team?
Well, I think they needed an offensive mind. Zimmer, Mike was was one of the league's best defensive coaches, but I think they needed a change up. It's going to be interesting to see what O'Connell does with Kirk Cousins this season. Kirk's one of the most underappreciated quarterbacks in this league.
There's more of a difference of opinion on him, Damo, than everybody knows Pat Mahomes is great. Everybody knows Chase Daniel's a backup.
Right.
Ask someone about Kirk Cousins. You'll get every answer from franchise quarterback to useless. Why is that, and what do you think about him?
I don't know. Because he hasn't, he hasn't sniffed a Super Bowl, and that goes a long way in how you judge quarterbacks. But when you look at his just pure numbers, since he became a starter in 2015, he's got like a 101 passer rating. His touchdowns to interception ratio is right there with Brady, with Mahomes. But again, the question comes like fourth quarter of a tight game. Is this the guy you want?
Yeah.
And that answer is where we get the mixed replies.
Ironically, Robert Griffin III, who was drafted second in that draft by the Washington Redskins in 2012, not by the Commanders, by the Redskins. Kirk Cousins drafted in the fourth round of that draft. Kirk Cousins playing tonight. Robert Griffin talking about it on TV. You never know how life's going to work out, do you?
No, you don't. The idea when they drafted Cousins was, okay, because everybody's saying two quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But they felt, we got ourselves a backup that'll it'll work well with RG3. Then RG3 ends up getting hurt, and it has a short career. Cousins, like you said, it's weird. He's still going strong. Probably will play several more years. Made a lot of money. I'll tell you one thing though. RG3's losses, injuries, and not being able to play more as a player have helped us. We've been the benefit because he is a terrific announcer.
Very good.
I love him. I really do.
Yep. And when he was drafted, by the way, in the irrelevant data portion of our show, he was not the only Robert Griffin from Baylor drafted in his draft year. Robert Griffin was also an offensive lineman from Baylor, drafted in the 6th round that year.
Yeah.
As we now have our guest, Mr. Sean Landeta. He is one of the great punters in the history of the NFL. He played with the Philadelphia Stars for 3 years, followed by 117 years among 6 NFL teams. Punter of the decade in the 80s, punter of the decade in the 90s, and wearing a black cap tonight, Mr. Sean Landeta. How are you, buddy?
Good, Paul, Dom. Great to see you guys. Hope everything's well.
All right, Sean, first question I'm going to ask you. We have the bull session after this. You played 23 years in the NFL. You're the NFL leader all time in punting yardage, punts inside the 20, and 8,000 other categories. You're in the Towson Hall of Fame, the Maryland Sports Hall of Fame, 8 other Hall of Fames, and waiting maybe for a day where you get in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And your favorite sport is?
Yeah, with all that being said, baseball by far is my favorite sport. I never played football until I was a senior in high school and played baseball since I was a kid. But, baseball I love. I always played, wanted to do that first, but I was fortunate to be able to punt in a way to be able to do that for a living. So I'll always be grateful for that. But, with that all being said, baseball is my favorite sport.
A product of Towson State.
Yeah, that's right.
Dave Maggot. Jake Elliott, he was a tennis player in college. They pulled him out of the crowd one day to kick a field goal. How did you start punting? Somebody at third base say, hey, try to kick a football for no apparent reason?
Well, no, it's really a great story. I got started kicking initially because when I was 9 years old, the Baltimore Colts won Super Bowl V on a last-second field goal.
By Jim O'Brien.
Jim O'Brien. And me and every kid in Baltimore wanted to be him. He was the hero. So we would kick the ball over a volleyball net when we would play our tackle football after school every day. And every year I just kept getting better and better at punting and kicking. And not till my senior year did I play. And the only reason that happened was one of the gym teachers saw me kick a football while we played in gym class and told our football coach that he thought I punted well. So if he didn't tell him that, coach would have never asked me to play, and I'd have never played. So interesting situations that happened for me, but that's how I got started.
So we were talking about, obviously, the game before this. We'll get into the Eagles and Jonathan Gannon and Jalen Hurts in the offense. But on the more visceral level, what's it like to play in a Monday Night Football game? Season opener, crowd's going to be at a fever pitch. Throw the Monday night thing on top of that. Just the Monday night slice of what we're asking. How excited do players get to play before the whole country? Although maybe not quite tonight because there are 2 games going on. There'll be a little red zone with it. But that aside, what's Monday Night Football like for players?
Well, it was always a little bit extra when you played on Monday night. The worst thing about it is for years it was a 9 o'clock kickoff. So, you'd have to wait not only an extra day, but till 9 o'clock at night, and quite often at midnight you were still playing. But other than that, it was just great to know you'd be playing in front of the whole country. And for the most part, it was nice to know that people where you lived back home, where you were from, would get a chance to see you, because a lot of times they wouldn't if you played far away from where you grew up. But always a little extra juice there when you played on Monday night.
Sure.
I always say this every time we have Sean on. Last year, I've covered pro football for 40 years. Don't know where I interviewed most of the people I interviewed. Sean, I will always forever remember the first sit-down interview I did with him was in a motel across the street from Disneyland. When I was covering the Philadelphia Stars and he was punting for the Stars, we're in this vinyl booth of Dick Corey on the hotel. And they were out there. They were out there playing 2 West Coast games, and so they were staying out there.
Next year, that'll be 40 years.
40 years since the Stars. What are your memories of the Stars, Sean? I remember watching you play with that team.
We had a terrific team. It was something new, a new league, and I don't think most people thought it would attract the players it did. I mean, back then the difference in money between the NFL and the USFL wasn't that much. I think people would be shocked if they realized in 1983 the average salary in the NFL was $70,000, and we were paying our guys an average of $35,000. So it wasn't that big a difference, and there were a lot of big-name veterans and draft picks and some really good football that was played back then, and I'll always cherish those 3 years. We had the best team in the league. We had tremendous coaches, front office, everything, and I was so lucky to play for the Philadelphia Stars on that kind of a team.
With all due respect, Sean, and I love you as a friend, love you as a football player, you were not the best player that the USFL brought to the Philadelphia Eagles. Maybe the best player in the history of the franchise was, although he didn't come from the Stars, he came from Memphis. Tell everybody who may not know who else came from the USFL.
Well, one of the greatest players in Eagles history, probably top 3 for sure.
Top 1.
Well, you can say top 1. There's a few other guys. A few old-timers might challenge that, but Reggie White, the great Reggie White, everyone remembers him, how great he was. Reggie and I actually got to play together years later in 1998 when I played for the Packers. I mean, one of the greatest years I ever saw a guy play. I think he was 37 years old and was the NFC Defensive Player of the Year at that age. I mean, he was just so great all these years later. But Reggie came to Philadelphia, and everyone remembers what a great player he was here. And, it's a shame that he passed early, had an untimely death. I remember back in 2005 when I was playing here for the Eagles, a Monday night game, they put, Reggie in their Hall of Fame and put the picture up, and it was snowing that night. And it was really
we got
really a
destroyed
special
that
thing.
night, I remember.
Yes, we did get beat very badly.
42-0, right?
Very
By
badly.
Seattle?
Seattle, who went to the Super Bowl that year, they were just clearly the best team in the NFC.
Tom, you used to like writing on Monday night games. You guys work on deadline, and obviously early in the morning with deadline, that's not a great mix. What was your point of view on it?
I hated it. I mean, early on in my career, the Daily News had like a 5 a.m. deadline, and that was great. Then you had all the time in the world. You were one of the few papers that did. That changed at some point, and we had a regular deadline just like everybody else. And it's like, I mean, you don't even see the fourth quarter because you're writing. It wasn't very enjoyable at all.
Well, we're going to have an enjoyable show for you. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Eagles game, soup to nuts, talk about the X's and O's, take a look around the NFL. A lot of crazy stuff happened yesterday. talk more about our great guest, Sean Landeta. I want to remind you to check out Hard Rock Philly's 90s Night, hosted by the band 9D's Night. That makes sense, doesn't it? Saturday, October 15th, 8 p.m. to midnight. $10 general admission, $15 for a table in the Vibe Lounge, delivering an exciting flashback of 90s nostalgia from Nirvana to NSYNC, Snoop Dogg, and the Spice Girls. We love all the sights and sounds of your favorite decade with this fun, interactive experience. Hard Rock Philly, that's where it is, 12th and Market, and we'll be back with the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff right after this. Stay with us.
Hard Rock Cafe in Center City at 12th and Market Streets has it all. Great food takes center stage with dine-in and pickup available. Their burgers are so famous, they have their own chauffeurs. So order delivery and catering too. So if you're celebrating or just getting the band together, Hard Rock Cafe's got your back. For more info, hit up hardrockcafe.com.
I'm Lisa Thomas Laurie. If you're on Medicare, I've got great news. Keystone 65 HMO plans from Independence Blue Cross have earned 5 stars, Medicare's highest rating for 2022. Some plans have no monthly premiums, no deductibles, and no copays for primary care visits and some prescription drugs. Don't wait. Visit ibxmedicare.com/star.
Every year, Medicare evaluates plans based on a 5-star rating system. Keystone 65 offers HMO plans with a Medicare contract. Enrollment in Keystone 65 Medicare Advantage plans depends on contract renewal. This is a paid endorsement.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Currently featuring a holiday promotion. If you reserve your party now, your guests are rewarded with 2 gifts of your choosing. Contract required. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
Fall into relaxation at Hand and Stone Massage and Facial Spa. For an introductory price of just $69.95, enjoy the tranquility of their massage services and the rejuvenating glow their facial services provide. They even have specialty services such as a pumpkin facial or their signature hot stone massage. Restore, relax, and reset at one of Hand and Stone's 57 locations in Delaware, South Jersey, and Philadelphia, including the Lehigh Valley, for an introductory price of just $69.95. Call or book online at handandstone.com. Restrictions apply. See spa for details.
We now return to the Hard Rock Cafe Philadelphia in downtown Center City for the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show. Once again, here are your hosts, Paul Jolovitz and Paul Domowitch.
And welcome back to the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show, live from the Hard Rock Cafe Philly here at 12th and Market. Don't forget, you can watch the show live at WBCBSports.com and Facebook Live by searching WBCB Sports. Here at the Hard Rock Live Music every Friday, 6 to 9 p.m. There's no cover, the best local artists on the main stage every week. Make your reservations today. And Wednesday night, join us here at Hard Rock for live entertainment in the cafe. Again, every Wednesday, enjoy some great food and drink and our happy hour drink specials every Wednesday, 5 to 7 p.m. This week's guest, the 21st, Joe Grasso, as we're here with Paul Domowitch and Sean Landeta. The Eagles coming out in week 1, doing a lot of stuff right, doing a lot of stuff not so right, but it was kind of like a first exhibition game. Sean, first question to you. You played forever in this league. You played through some kind of trends. I mean, you played in one area, you played in another, you overlapped some areas, but I'm not sure you played in the training camp, country club atmosphere. I'm not saying they don't work hard. Every team works hard, but not tackling the ground very much, not hitting. Makes the first month in a lot of people's minds the first preseason game, first 4 preseason games, and you very rarely see quality football in the first few. That happened to the Eagles last week. What was it like to train in a totally different way, and how do you feel about today?
Well, I think we all know why they do what they do today. It's all with the player's safety in mind, but I think every player today will tell you they wish there was more hitting. You know, they wish they did do more because they're football players and they love to play. But there's no doubt that week 1 in the NFL today, the guys aren't quite as ready because they don't go through as many hits as they did years ago. But, that being said, I mean, you look at the first 2 weeks this year, and we've seen some very, very exciting and really good football played in spite of that. Yeah. Before this year, I would say that there were a lot of games at the first few games. You could see that they were getting used to everything that they used to do years back. I can remember back in the 80s and 90s where – you in the fourth game of the year, guys would still play the first quarter and a half. Usually you played 1 quarter week 1, 2 quarters week 2. The third preseason game you played 3 quarters. And in the fourth preseason game you still played a quarter. I mean, now today you have players not taking a snap until week 1, which, again, I think if you ask them, they'd even tell you, I'd like to be in there. But, they worry about the injury factor.
I mean, we can look at games like the Eagles game last week and say, the quality wasn't great, the tackling was bad. But, I mean, the bottom line is, like you look at yesterday, 8 of the 12 games that have been played so far, 1-score games.
Yep.
7 of them, 4 points or less. That's all the NFL cares about.
Yep.
And they should.
Really.
I mean, they're exciting games. But, I mean, when you have that kind of parity, people aren't going to notice that that a cornerback might have missed a tackle here or there.
That's a great point, Domo. And again, everything circles back to money. But the NFL wants to keep the product exciting. 1 million comebacks yesterday. Joe Flacco led the Jets. The Giants are 2-0, shockingly. What's the most surprising thing, either one of you guys, that's happened in the first 2 weeks of the NFL? A 2-week period in which there's been a ton of surprises, injuries. Obviously, Trey Lance, Jimmy G. Thank God they didn't trade him for the Niners. But what's the biggest surprise, either good or bad?
Well, I mean, a couple teams, I guess, I don't know if it's a surprise as much as impressed. I mean, the Giants are 2-0. Miami Dolphins are 2-0. And those are legitimate. I mean, Miami is a good team. I mean, they're a top 10 team in this league right now.
Tua has shown himself pretty well. 6 touchdowns.
It's like a year or so ago, people were questioning whether this guy was a legitimate quarterback.
I still am, to be honest with you. I'm not totally sold. 21-point comeback in the fourth quarter yesterday, though.
Yeah.
Got some weapons to throw to now.
Yeah, I would say that. Two things. One, Miami would be my biggest surprise at the way they've played. And the Raiders starting off 0-2. They've kind of been on the cusp the last few years. Last year, I think they had to win their last 4, which they did. And they gave Cincinnati a heck of a run on the road in that playoff game. And, this year I didn't think they'd start 0-2, but they're behind the 8 ball. And, there's a statistic. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's really amazing that after just 2 weeks in an NFL season, if you're 0-2, you're already at about an 80% chance of not making the playoffs.
They talk about teams saving their season in week 2.
I mean, it's only week 2, and I think week 3, if you start 0-3, it's something like 91%. There's still 14 games left. Now, interesting enough, if you start 2-0, there's not an 80% chance you won't make the playoffs. It's only about 65. Yep. But very interesting how from Sunday to Sunday, in just 8 days, you're almost 80% against making the playoffs.
I checked earlier today. Of the 28 teams that have played so far, 18 have 1-1 records.
Yeah.
I mean, that is parity.
Well, let me say, I'll play the game show host for a second and say I'm the most disappointing team in the NFL that neither of you guys have mentioned right now. Am I the Indianapolis Colts or the Cincinnati Bengals?
Bengals is a great point. I mean, a team coming off a Super Bowl, no one thought they'd start 0-2. That's a great pick.
Their offensive line's having trouble. Certain teams, and to me, you have to bring it back again. I'm all for safety. I'm all for taking as much precaution as you can. But if an offensive line or the Eagles' offensive line wasn't great last week, despite being tremendous on paper, it just has to do with reps to me. If a concert, Sean, if a group was playing the Link and 80,000 people went to a concert there and the band didn't rehearse for 8 months, didn't do a live sound check, I mean, would you expect a great performance? I'm overdoing a little bit, but you get the point.
No, you're right. There's no question. Repetitions in practice sharpen everybody. And, let's see. Last week, there's no question the Eagles, very happy they won, but disappointed that Detroit got back in the game the way they did.
Yeah.
And listen, the way Jalen Hurts played, his decision-making to run and take off, how many sacks did he prevent? How many yards did he pick up just because of his skill? Yeah. I know you have to have the other guys out there, but he was outstanding and just keeping the Eagles going. And let's see tonight, they're playing a much tougher team than Detroit. No disrespect to them. They have a tall order on their hands tonight.
Damo, what did you think of Jalen Hurts last week? Obviously, you don't want to run 17 times. He gained 90 yards, but he did what he had to do, and they won the game. How impressed were you by Jalen? I exactly was showing the decision-making was terrific as well.
Well, I mean, it was another step in his development. He was very efficient on third down. I think he completed 5 of 9 passes. All 5 were for first downs on third down. You're right. You don't want him running 17 times, but, I mean, he's going to run quite a bit. I mean, he's going to run when, and from listening to Nick Sirianni talk since after the game, I mean, they're not holding him to 3-4 progressions. If after 2 he feels pressure and wants to get out of there, they're okay with that. He knows how to get down. Granted, the more you run, the bigger jeopardy of getting hurt, but he knows how to protect himself. He's got a fullback body, and it's such a part of his game. I mean, you take that away, I mean, he's not a prolific passer right now. I mean, he's going to get better, but he's not Tom Brady. He's not Aaron Rodgers or Justin Herbert. So he needs that, just like Lamar Jackson needs the running game. So that's going to continue regardless of what people want or don't want.
All right, a lot to break down about last week's game. Sean, game show host number 2 here. My name is Jonathan Gannon. I'm the Eagles defensive coordinator. Do you think a bigger problem last week was the fact that I was not aggressive at all in manipulating my chess pieces on the board against the Detroit Lions, or my guys had so little reps together on a team where there's a lot of newness that I was afraid to unleash them because of holes I could have caused in the defense? What do you think was more of a problem last week?
I'm not sure if it was either one of them. It's almost a subconscious thing that when you get up, what was the score, 38-17 at one point?
35-17.
35-17. It's late in the game.
Or 38-21.
Yeah, it's not that you're not trying. Of course you are. But you have that cushion and that mindset maybe that you don't want to give that big play up right now. That old prevent defense thing where you want to keep everything in front of you. But in the meantime, they're gaining yards and they're moving. I think it might have been more of that they made sure they had the game in hand. Although maybe if there was 8 more minutes in that game, the way it was going, Detroit might have won. But I just think they pulled back just a little bit, even if not consciously, because no one's just going to let you get yards. But I think it was more they didn't want to get beat over the top to let them get back in quickly.
And I'm not sure, to say they weren't aggressive enough, Jolly, they blitzed 8 of 38 pass plays.
At the beginning of the game, yes. But
No, they blitzed after Goff was starting to have some success in the fourth quarter. It just wasn't working very well. But they blitzed 21% of the time. They sent 5 guys or more. I mean, that's certainly along the lines of what Schwartz used to blitz. Is it as much as a lot? Jim Johnson used to? No, but that wasn't. I think what Sean was saying about you've got a game in hand and then you kind of have a letdown and you just can't. They gain some momentum and you can't. You're struggling to get back to where you were. I think it is a problem. I'm going to be interested today. The biggest thing I want to see what that defense is. Does Jordan Davis play more snaps? Because I didn't understand why he only played 22 snaps last week. And Nakobe Dean, who I think is a terrific player. They had T.J. Edwards out there for 100% of the snaps. T.J. Edwards has shown to be a terrific player, but he's a first and second down linebacker. He can't cover. Nakobe Dean can. I don't know if they're just bringing him along slowly. That's the question we don't know right now. But I think he needs to play.
You took the words right out of my mouth, and I've said this since day one, since last year. Anybody who watched Georgia play knows what an animal Nakobe Dean is. I say that in the most positive of ways. He's going to be the Eagles' middle linebacker for the next 10 years. He's Jeremiah Trotter Part 2, obviously not as big, very smart guy, a leader. The second they get him in this defense, the defense is going to change, not overnight. And he's not Lawrence Taylor, but getting Nakobe Dean in here. Sean, you play with Lawrence Taylor, a guy who obviously is incomparable, but what can one player do when they're injected into a defense or an offense if they have enough talent and they bring a team with them? I think Nakobe Dean can be that kind of player for the Eagles defense.
Oh, we all do. Again, you mentioned how great he was in college, and, we all see the skill he has. And, maybe tonight could be kind of a coming out party where we see him do all those things we know he can do. But I agree with you very much, Paul. He's got to be out there more, and Davis has to be out there more. I mean, this is why you drafted him, and let's hope tonight we see it because, boy, if you need some defense, you need it tonight against this offense the Vikings have.
What's interesting? I mean, you played for Parcells. Nakobe Dean, he would have no use for Nakobe Dean because, I mean, he was there was just like a fine line. I don't want short linebackers. I want big guys. I want 6'2", 6'3" linebackers, and there were no exceptions.
And that's such a shame because there have been numerous linebackers, 5'11", 6 feet, 6'1", 6'2", that have
Guy
been
you
outstanding.
played with, Sam Mills.
5'9". Yeah, you go down the list. There's been so many great ones, but he just had his thing with that, and fortunately it worked out, with the guys he chose.
Here at the Hard Rock Cafe, they have happy hour every Monday through Friday from 5 to 7. $1 off Bud Light, Sam Adams, and Blue Moon Drafts. $6 House Chardonnay and Merlot. $5 Smirnoff and Cruzan Rum. Single liquor drinks, 7 for doubles. W Sports Talk Mondays from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Hard Rock with our Monday Night Kickoff show on the Bull Session. Tonight, the 19th, the 26th, the 3rd of October, and however long the Phillies last for the Phillies playoff run. Hopefully they'll have one. And the Eagles road to victory while enjoying some great food and our happy hour specials. Paul Jolovitz with Paul Domowitch, our guest Sean Landeta. We'll be back from the Hard Rock at 12th and Market right after this.
Hard Rock Cafe in Center City has it all. Great food, free live entertainment on Friday nights, and they're the epicenter for special occasions. Let them rock and roll to you with catering for your next gathering or book a private event space for your band's next meeting. Whether it's lunch, dinner, or late night, let them turn it up at Hard Rock Cafe at 12th and Market Street. For more info, visit hardrockcafe.com.
I'm Lisa Thomas-Laurie. If you're on Medicare, I've got great news. Keystone 65 HMO plans from Independence Blue Cross have earned 5 stars, Medicare's highest rating for 2022. Some plans have no monthly premiums, no deductibles, and no copays for primary care visits and some prescription drugs. Don't wait. Visit ibxmedicare.com/star.
Every year, Medicare evaluates plans based on a 5-star rating system. Keystone 65 offers HMO plans with a Medicare contract. Enrollment in Keystone 65 Medicare Advantage plans depends on contract renewal. This is a paid endorsement.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Currently featuring a holiday promotion. If you reserve your party now, your guests are rewarded with 2 gifts of your choosing. Contract required. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
Don't hang out alone in the man cave this football season. Hang out at Cheerleaders with sexy entertainers, $4 Miller Lights, Jameson specials, and awesome game day prizes during all Sunday and Monday football games. Stop in before, during, or after the game to see your favorite entertainers and your chance to win an awesome game day prize. The most epic game day experience is at Cheerleaders Gentlemen's Club, where champions play. Open daily from noon till 2 a.m.
We now return to the Hard Rock Cafe, Philadelphia in downtown Center City for the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show. Once again, here are your hosts, Paul Jolovitz and Paul Domowitch.
Welcome back to the Hard Rock Cafe at 12th and Market, where we'll be every week, 5 o'clock on Mondays, as long as the Phillies are alive. 6 o'clock after that with Paul Domowitch, my co-host. Damo in the missing department last week was Devontae Smith, who was targeted 4 times, caught a pass that was called back due to penalty. While A.J. Brown went berserk on the other side with a 155-yard game. Obviously, Devontae wasn't ignored by Jalen Hurts. He and A.J. Brown are good friends and had that chemistry coming in. But we got to expect to see a little bit more of Devontae tonight, don't we?
Yeah, I would think so. That's to take anything out of one game is kind of a mistake.
Correct.
I think that ball's going to be distributed a little more to him. I think you're going to see Goddard. They're all going to have their big games. I think A.J. Brown is still going to be a big part of this. I think he's going to probably end up being their leading receiver when all's said and done if everybody stays healthy. But, I think we're going to see tonight Devontae Smith be a little bit more of a factor.
Aside from Devontae Smith last week, Miles Sanders had a nice game. Kenny Gainwell, Boston Scott, Dallas Goedert really wasn't thrown to a lot, caught a couple balls in the second period. Sean, who lit your lamp last week? Give me an Eagle that, for some reason, you thought really stood out and that you didn't expect to against the Lions. Was there anybody?
I don't know if there was anybody. I expected most of the better players to play well. You mentioned before the one thing that was really a shock to me. I mean, what kind of odds would they have given if you'd have said Devontae Smith is not going to catch one pass? I mean, I couldn't believe it. We all know the great game that Green had on the other side, but geez, I mean, for him not to catch one ball, there's no doubt they're going to try to get him the ball tonight. That was the biggest thing to me.
Damo, we know the Justin Jefferson story. We know the story of the draft. They took Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson. Mistake. Howie's admitted it. They've talked about it. They traded Jalen Reagor back to play with Justin Jefferson. Apparently, Justin Jefferson is teaching Jalen Reagor how to fair catch a punt in all kinds of conditions. Dome stadiums, not dome stadiums. Meanwhile, Justin Jefferson's had as good a first 2 years as has ever been had in the NFL by a wide receiver. We continue to make a big deal of it. It's done. It's over with. It's not going to be changed. Is this starting to drive you nuts? And will tonight's game provide some type of closure to at least the drama of this?
No, because it's just such a monumental mistake.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one that's always going to be there. Now, here's the interesting thing, though. If they drafted Justin Jefferson, which they should have, I mean, no question.
No question.
And they probably never would have drafted Devontae Smith the next year. Who they would have drafted, I don't know. But so it would have changed the dynamics. But certainly that was when you go back and look at draft mistakes of this club over the last 30, 40 years, that one will be right there near the top.
And Sean, let me ask you this way, because you're a thought process kind of guy, and I think you have an interesting answer to this question. Justin Jefferson was the obvious pick, 21st pick in the draft. But there aren't 20 people in that draft better than Justin Jefferson. Why are we arguing that Justin Jefferson was the obvious 21st pick after his first 2 years? Why wasn't he a top 5 pick, top 10 pick? You ever wondered about that angle?
Well, most of the time, Paul, a lot of times you're grading these, not a lot of times, you're always grading the player coming out of college on what he's done to that point, how you think he's going to progress, how much better he's going to get, and that's where the unknown is. There's a saying, all roses bloom at a different time. A lot of these guys, you may see the best of them when they're a junior or senior in college, and that's really good, and they'll be good, but there's other guys that will continue to get better, a little faster, a little sharper. Now, he came out right away and was a star in this league, and obviously if anybody knew that, he'd have been a top 5 pick, but it just comes down to the draft system of a team that says to themselves, how good do we think this guy is, and obviously what kind of need we had. We can go over for years and years players. Look at Brian Westbrook. I mean, if Brian Westbrook was the first pick in the draft in the NFL, everybody would have went crazy. But at the end of his career, you could say that he played in a way that a first pick in the NFL draft would. It all depends on how a team values a certain player in a position and where they think they are at that point.
And Damo, a lot of people say Justin Jefferson was the number 2 receiver at LSU, which he was, to Jamar Chase, who you saw with the Bengals last year and probably will for years to come. You think that played into it at all? People thought maybe he was caddying for Tiger Woods, if you know what I mean?
What played into it was Howie and several of his scouts believed that Justin Jefferson's strength was as a slot receiver, and they were looking for somebody on the outside. They didn't think he could be the exceptional player he was inside, which is where he played mostly that last year at LSU on the outside. They apparently forgot to look at the tape from the year before when he played almost exclusively on the outside and did the same thing.
Let's just be blunt about this, guys. I want to say something to you, too, that just react if you can. The NFL, I think, sometimes goes too far in their grading of players. To me, any outside receiver can be okay in the slot. Any slot receiver can be okay on the outside. Any outside cornerback can be okay in the slot, and vice versa. The specialization and the levels they're in, to me, are to levels that are ridiculous. And we just stratify these guys and think, well, you can't play inside, you can play outside. It's absurd to me in a lot of cases, and it leads to mistakes like this. You agree or disagree, basically?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's clearly a lot of over-examination that goes on, which is why a lot of the mistakes are made. I'm not sure that every guy that can play slot can be a superstar on the outside.
Not a superstar, but can play at a decent level. I mean,
but this was a situation that he could have played anywhere. You talk to people around the league; they knew that. I mean, Minnesota couldn't. I mean, when the Eagles announced they were taking Jalen Reagor, Minnesota couldn't get up there fast enough to put in their pick. I mean, it was just like, my God, Christmas has come early.
What do you think about this, Sean?
Well, I understand what you're saying, that these guys are all so good and talented that if you put them in different positions, they'll still be good. But what you said other than that is really the thing, the expectation. We expect these guys to come from college to the pros, which is not big leap. It's a huge, huge leap.
Right.
You know, I remember I had a teammate when I played for the Rams, Orlando Pace, who's in the Hall of Fame. He was the first pick in the draft coming out of Ohio State. And I asked him one time, I said, would you say that whoever the worst player you played your rookie years in the NFL was better than whoever you faced your senior year in college? He said, you know, I never thought of that, but yeah, I don't think there's any player I played against my senior year that was as good as whoever the worst guy.
Yeah.
So right there, that just tells you the difference in skill. And there's so much expectations, quite often unfair, that we want this 22-year-old who was great in college against 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. We want him to come here against grown men, the best player of the world, and be a star today. Sometimes it's a little bit unfair to ask that.
Yeah, and that's why the guys are paid the big bucks to differentiate between guys. Sean, you also obviously are a member of many special teams. The church lady on Saturday Night Live, Dana Carvey back in the day, might have said that this year the Eagles special teams were not so special looking. How do you think they played the first week, and then how can they get better with reps tonight and then on in the future?
You know, I think they did a good job. Their kicker is outstanding.
Terrific.
We know that. I think their punter's very good. He had a really good year last year until the end. He tailed off a little bit, but I think he'll even be a year better. And, you know, this guy's 30 years old. He's not a young kid. It was only his first year in the league, but, you know, he has the mindset of a veteran. You know, we just have to see how the return game goes because that's such a big thing. And, you know, especially in tight games, that 15, 20-yard return can be all the difference in you ending up kicking a field goal to win.
All right, I don't mean to take anybody's name in vain here, Domo, but we spent this morning, if you're an American with a television, probably watching something that happened in Britain. Queen Elizabeth passed away, her funeral in London. A lot of people might spend the night in Philadelphia and around the rest of the United States watching something named Britton also, Britton Covey. It's my prediction tonight that Britton Covey's going to break one for the Eagles, a kick return or a punt return. The Eagles haven't got a kick return for a touchdown since 1832. Covey's a guy that I think a lot of people are going to be very happy with very quickly. I think he's going to be up again tonight. I think he's going to bust something, just a gut hunch. Do you support me?
He's got talent, and he's. You know,
in other words, no.
Anything's possible. You know, he's being mentored by Darren Sproles. What more could you ask? I mean, I think he's got some potential. We'll see what happens. I mean, a lot of it's the people in front of him blocking for him too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all know how rare it is for a kick or punt return for a touchdown, but I think what you're referring to is what I said before, that 15, 20-yard punt return at some point that sets your offense up and puts them in great shape.
Obviously, you punted a couple times in the NFL over a century and a half. Who's the best punt returner you ever kicked to, and did you used to try to avoid, whether your coach told you or you kick away from people, and something that scared you more than anybody else?
You know, most punters will tell you they hate to kick away from people because you don't like to go outside of your game and what you do best. I understand he's a threat, but so many times a punt returner will get a big punt return because you kicked out of your rhythm to try to avoid it, and you ended up kicking a ball that wasn't great that allowed him to do it. You know, the years I played against some great ones. Maybe the scariest and most dangerous guy of all is a guy that never got me was Deion Sanders. Because he was fearless. He would take chances. He would go against the grain. He'd run backwards, forwards, but just his confidence in himself. You know, I mean, he was such a terrific returner. And, you know, there'd be times where I'd go back to punt and he'd be looking at me like, you know, which way, what are you going to do, you know, playing around. But he was a great player and certainly a great punt returner.
Well, who's the greatest fair catch artist you ever kicked to? Jalen Reagor tonight bringing his fair catch skills back here to Philadelphia, doesn't run north and south, either runs east-west or just fair catches the ball. It's such an underrated skill these days, but who's the greatest fair catch artist that you ever kicked to?
Artist?
Yeah, somebody who can just fair catch with flair. Is there not such a thing?
I don't know. You know, I think you're taking a little shot there at Mr. Reagor, you know, but you know, another guy I need to mention too was Brian Mitchell, one of the greatest of all time. I mean, I played against him for years when he was Washington and when I was with the Rams, and he was terrific. That was a guy that scared you because, you know, he could do it not only with his speed but brute strength.
Well, sure, but tell me, guys, that if Jalen Reagor drops a punt tonight and the Eagles recover, that place, the top's going to be blown off the link, right?
No, it will. I mean, I certainly want the Eagles to win, But for Rager's sake, I hope he makes a few catches.
Yeah.
I hope he catches a few balls because it's almost been to the point where it's unfair against this young man, how awful they've been.
It sure will. It should be very interesting tonight. Eagles and Vikings at 8:15. The first Monday night game at 7. You got a quick pick before we go to break, Buffalo and Tennessee, Sean?
You know, Buffalo, I don't know if they're healthy that I will pick anyone against them. I mean, they are so
Best team in
good.
football?
Right
Okay.
now they are. I don't.
For 1 week.
They're terrific.
Yeah, they pounded the Rams. Damo, any shot of them losing?
I agree with
Tennessee
Sean.
got beat by the Giants at home.
Yeah, there's a shot that they could lose, but
Yeah.
it's highly unlikely. I mean,
I don't see them. I don't see Derrick Henry running for 150 yards against them. I don't see them stopping Josh Allen. They're just the best team in the league right now.
I think this is going to be a very close game tonight, Buffalo and Tennessee, and I can't
could
tell you
be.
why. It's just the rhythms of the NFL seem to dance to their own beat. We're going to dance to our own beat, too. We're going to take a quick break, come back, finish up our show. Stay tuned for the Bull Session after us. The Monday Night Kickoff with Sean Landeta, my co-host Paul Domowitch, and myself continues right after this.
Hard Rock Cafe has it all. Great food takes center stage as they tune up your visit with free live music every Friday night at 6. Sponsored by Conshohocken Brewing Company. See Philly's best rocking the main stage while you enjoy Hard Rock favorites right here in Center City. Pickup, delivery, and catering available. For more info, visit hardrockcafe.com.
I'm Lisa Thomas Laurie. If you're on Medicare, I've got great news. Keystone 65 HMO plans from Independence Blue Cross have earned 5 stars, Medicare's highest rating for 2022. Some plans have no monthly premiums, no deductibles, and no copays for primary care visits and some prescription drugs. Don't wait. Visit ibxmedicare.com/star.
Every year, Medicare evaluates plans based on a 5-star rating system. Keystone 65 offers HMO plans with a Medicare contract. Enrollment in Keystone 65 Medicare Advantage plans depends on contract renewal. This is a paid endorsement.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Currently featuring a holiday promotion. If you reserve your party now, your guests are rewarded with 2 gifts of your choosing. Contract required. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
Fall into relaxation at Hand and Stone Massage and Facial Spa. For an introductory price of just $69.95, enjoy the tranquility of their massage services and the rejuvenating glow their facial services provide. They even have specialty services such as a pumpkin facial or their signature hot stone massage. Restore, relax, and reset at one of Hand and Stone's 57 locations in Delaware, South Jersey, and Philadelphia, including the Lehigh Valley, for an introductory price of just $69.95. Call or book online at handandstone.com. Restrictions apply. See spa for details.
We now return to the Hard Rock Cafe Philadelphia in downtown Center City for the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show. Once again, here are your hosts, Paul Jolovitz and Paul Domowitch.
Back here at the beautiful Hard Rock Cafe at 12th and Market, Nick Sirianni getting his boys ready at the link for home opener Monday Night Football, Eagles and the Minnesota Vikings. I'm going to take the Eagles pretty easy in this one. Like I told you, I think it's a beautiful spot for the Eagles. I think they fit like a glove. I think they're going to be able to run on the Vikings, Damo. I think they're going to make some big plays. Defense is going to be unleashed a little bit more by Jonathan Gannon. Hopefully with Nakobe Dean in there, maybe create a couple turnovers. I have Eagles 30, Vikings 20.
Yeah, the only problem is they're playing at home. That's never good. What were they last year?
Not good at
3
home.
and 3 and
3
5,
and 5,
I
yeah.
believe.
Yep.
Now a lot of their toughest opponents were here. Tampa Bay, I forget who else, but they had a ton of guys, teams that. But yeah, sometimes they just do not play well here at the Lynx.
Packers.
So I think it's going to be closer than that. I think it's going to be just because every game in the league seems to be a one-score game. I'm going to say it's going to be 10 points or less difference here.
All right, Sean, what do you think? Lions 2.5, 49.5 the over-under. What do you think the score is tonight?
I don't know about the score. I expect the game to be very close. I mean, Minnesota's a really good team.
Yeah.
I know it was only one game at home, but you look at the way they played against the Packers, defensively, the way they did. Not only offense, we know what they have on offense, but this team's much tougher than Detroit, and I think this is going to be a struggle for the Eagles. Believe me, I hope they win by 20, but I expect this to be a very close game.
If they can't get better pressure on Kirk Cousins this week as opposed to what they did against Goff. Now, he's going to hang on to the ball a little bit longer than Goff did last week, but they still, if they give him time, he'll pick them apart with Jefferson and with Adam Thielen out there.
I just think the football is a game of rhythm, and in a lot of ways that trumps talent. Obviously, talent matters. I think X and O-wise, Eagles can run on them. I think everything points toward the Eagles tonight. Some games you get guys just playing their best, other teams not playing so well. I just have a feeling, I'm not an Eagle guy. I'm a huge Eagle fan, but I don't talk about this much. I just think it's a very nice spot for the Eagles. Did you ever get that thought, Sean, that football is a game of rhythms and you expected yourself to play well or were worried about not playing well in a game in which it looked like the opposite?
Not really. It does happen. I mean, believe me, every team, you go out, you feel good about your chances. You feel good about your teammates. If you execute the game plan that you can win. Obviously when you play teams that are much better, it's a lot harder to do. But, sometimes that does happen. I can remember back, a few games. One game when I was with the Eagles in 2002, I know the Colts were very good, but they came in here to play us. And, we had a great defense. We had one of the best teams in the league. And we lost at home to the Colts like 40-something to 10. And I just, there's no way in the world you would have thought a team like ours, playing the way we were that year, with that defense at home, could lose like that. But you never expect anything wild, especially in the NFL, because you know how tough that opponent is. The fans will say, well, they're 4-8, they're terrible. It's like, no, they're not terrible. 5 of their 8 losses by 5 points or less, and we just watched them all film all week. They're pretty good. So anytime something like that happens, especially if it's against you, you are really shocked.
Compare this fan base as far as playing in front of them to the Giants fan base.
Well, I would say maybe the word voracious. Here they're more vocal. The Giants certainly have a terrific fan base because, they've been around forever like the Eagles. But there's no doubt that the Eagles, fan base is, a little more forceful and,
You're being kind.
They make sure you hear them a little bit more
Just a bit.
than up there. Yeah.
The best. Next week, by the way, the Monday night game, you guys know what that is, right? The 2-0 Giants and the 1-1 Cowboys off that Cooper Rush victory yesterday over the Bengals. Giants going to obviously playing for the lead in the division, hopefully tied with the Eagles. But does it surprise you, Damo, that the Giants are 2-0 out with two, as Sean says, toothpaste tube wins, squeezing them out?
Yeah, I mean, it does. I mean, I thought they would be better this year. I think Brian Daboll's a good coach. They have a good GM now. I just, that they'd be 2-0 right now for the first time since 2016 is a little bit of a surprise.
All right, Sean, let's attack the 17,000-pound elephant in the room. He's not actually in the room, or we'd be running out of here real quickly. You're not in the Hall of Fame. There's only one punter that is, Ray Guy. By most people's thought process, you were the punter of the decade in the 80s, second in the 90s. You're one of the top 2 or 3 punters in the history of the NFL. It's left to others to decide if you ever get in. Paul was on the committee for many years. What would it mean to you to eventually make the final 15 and then be inducted in Canton someday if that were to happen?
Well, geez, if, as a player to have something like that happen to you, would be the greatest honor you could ever get. When you think of the history of the game, how few players are in there, and, if they felt that you were one of the best players in your position to be put in there forever, I mean, I don't know if there are words that can describe just how unbelievable that would be for me, not only for me, but, your family and your friends, people through the years that helped you. And, if it ever did happen, that would be the first people I'd think about, all the people that helped me through the years. And, one of these days, maybe down the road, it can happen. I know it's tough, but we'll see what happens in the future.
Tom, what has to happen? You've been through the room many times. You were a voter.
Still am.
What has to happen for Sean or any punter? Because to me, if a position is on a football field or any field, that person should be represented and immortalized as the best at what he or she did. And there's only one punter in the Hall of Fame. Is only one punter good enough to make that honor, or is that just ridiculous?
I mean, every year that, before we vote, I mean, I usually lobby for several players, and Sean's always been on that list. Even before Ray Guy went in, I felt he was more deserving than Guy.
Wow.
I think there are a lot of people. Maybe there's 48 voters. I'm sure a lot of them have a problem with putting special teams guys in. But we put in Guy, we put in Morton Anderson.
Stenerud was the first.
Now Sean's getting close to what was your last year?
05 was my last year.
Okay, so you still have some modern era eligibility, because that's once you lose your modern eligibility and go into the senior pool, it's very tough. Although Ray Guy was a veteran guy, but no, he's very deserving. I mean, he's the best directional kicker I've ever covered, seen. You look at his numbers compared to Reggie Roby and Ray Guy. Well,
I appreciate it, Paul. Maybe one day. I know I heard them talking about possibly coming up with a specialist vote.
Yeah.
Where every other year, every third year, they put one in. And also, you saw a few years ago the Blue Ribbon Panel. I had read an article where they were talking about maybe having a one-time thing to get specialists in, like they did to get them in. And, who knows? Maybe if things like that are talked about down the road, that can help.
They've opened it up for, they've changed the rules so much. Contributors, they added a separate category for coaches. Like you said, in 2020, they expanded, 10 seniors got in that year. So, they are open to change, and certainly adding a specialist category, if not every year, every other year, would be a terrific idea.
Yeah, I don't think the fans I don't think anybody would be against it, if every other year or maybe a few years from now you put in 5 or 10 guys, returners, kickers, punters, special teams guys. You think of Brian Mitchell. You think of Steve Tasker, Billy White Shoes Johnson. Adam Vinatieri's going to get in.
Oh, yeah.
Shane Leckler will get in because
Justin Tucker's going to get in for
he'll
sure.
Get in. There's a bunch of guys. Devin Hester was a great returner. Brian Mitchell, I think I mentioned that. I think there's 8 or 10 guys out there that you can look at the numbers and say they are worthy for it. But maybe one day that'll happen.
All right, guys, we're coming to the close of our show real quickly. Britton Covey, Nakobe Dean, the Eagles surprise difference makers tonight. You got anybody, either one of you?
Jordan Davis.
Jordan Davis?
I'd like to see Devonta Smith get 5 or 6 catches tonight. Obviously, Minnesota watches the tape. You would think they're going to do everything they can to be all over A.J. Let's see what he does tonight. I'll put it this way. I don't know how many games the Eagles can win if Smith doesn't have a catch in the game.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see. Merrill Reese and Mike Quick in their 25th year together do the game on WIP. Obviously, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman do the game on ABC. Eagles and the Vikings, if you're down there, have a good time. Sean Landeta, thank you so much for being with us tonight, and good luck down the road.
Thanks very much, Paul. Domo, great to see you guys. Thank you.
Any final thoughts, Domo?
No.
No.
No,
right,
I think it's great doing the show right before a Monday night game. It's a lot of excitement.
Next week, our guest is Seth Joyner. Stay tuned for the Bull Session with Mickey Morandini subbing for Greg Luzinski, who had some surgery last week, and Dan Baker. Their guest will be former reliever Gene Garber. This has been the Monday Night Kickoff, Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Go Eagles. Have a great week.
You've been listening to the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show. Tonight's show is an exclusive presentation of WBCB 1490 and 107.3 FM, and heard around the world at WBCB1490.com.